Welcome to the Fashion Algorithm, where we dive deep into the tech that shapes what you see when you shop for clothes online.
Hmm.
Think about how Netflix just knows what show you'll want to watch next. Today, we're unpacking something similar, but with a stylish twist.
Right.
How fashion e-commerce platforms try to figure out your unique style and serve up recommendations tailored just for you.
Yeah.
If you've ever scrolled through a clothing website and wondered, how did they know I'd like that? Then this deep dive is definitely for you.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
probably familiar with those personalized suggestions popping up as you browse your favorite clothing sites,
Mm-hmm.
just like you're used to seeing curated recommendations on your streaming services.
Sure.
But the big question we're tackling today is, why is getting fashion recommendations right online so much harder, really, than getting your next Netflix binge sorted?
Yeah. What are the unique challenges that fashion retailers face?
That's what we're getting into.
Okay, let's jump right in. We've been looking at a range of research, and one thing stands out immediately. When it comes to fashion, it's often an emotional connection that drives a purchase.
Oh, definitely.
One of our sources even says it's always at least partly an emotional one. That's a fundamental difference from how you might choose a movie, right? Based on genre or maybe an actor.
That emotional layer is absolutely key. Consider this. You might pick a documentary because you're, I don't know, interested in the topic, or a comedy just to unwind.
Right. Pure entertainment.
But fashion choices are so deeply intertwined with how you want to feel, the image you want to project.
Hmm.
This makes predicting fashion preferences a far more complex challenge for algorithms than, say, predicting what kind of content you'll consume.
So how do these fashion platforms even begin to understand what we might like? I mean, the basics are similar to other online services.
Yeah, baseline stuff.
They collect data on what you browse, what you buy, how you interact with products on their site. We saw ASOS, for example, uses this kind of behavioral data.
But in fashion, that's really just the starting point.
Mm.
Our research highlights the crucial role of your personal attributes,
Like what specifically?
specifically your body type and overall fashion style preferences. For a truly personalized experience, these are essential pieces of the puzzle.
Ah, okay.
And this is a major divergence from media platforms where, your physical characteristics don't really come into play when suggesting content.
That makes perfect sense. And some companies are taking a really direct approach to gathering this style information.
Like who?
The Yes, for instance, has what they call a radically personal approach. They essentially have you vote yes or no on a whole bunch of different clothing items right at the beginning.
Oh, interesting. Like a quiz.
Sort of, yeah, to build an initial profile of your taste. It's like creating a digital snapshot of your style from the get-go.
What's fascinating here is the contrast with how media streaming services operate, like, Netflix. They have this incredibly rich environment of data. Your entire viewing history, what you search for, how long you watch things, the devices you use.
Even those thumbs up or down ratings.
Exactly. They can infer a lot about your preferences just from your consumption habits. It's clearer data in many ways.
Exactly. If you binge watch a whole season of a sci-fi show, the signal is pretty clear. Like, okay, they probably like sci-fi.
Right.
But if you browse through a bunch of, say, red dresses online, it doesn't necessarily mean you're exclusively interested in red dresses.
No, you might be comparing shades or fabrics or styles for a specific event.
Exactly. As one of our sources points out, in media, frequency often equals preference. Lots of horror movies watched means you probably like horror.
Makes sense.
But in fashion, buying multiple white t-shirts might just be about stocking up on a wardrobe staple.
Yeah.
It's much more nuanced.
hmm And this complexity really comes into focus when we consider the role of context.
Yeah.
Context is just so much more significant in fashion than in media.
No.
Think about it. What you choose to wear is heavily influenced by the situation. Are you dressing for a job interview, a weekend hike, or, I don't know, a formal dinner?
Completely different needs.
Right. Our research emphasizes that recommendations need to consider both what's appropriate for the occasion wearing properly and what aligns with your personal aesthetic wearing aesthetically.
And then there's the very personal context of your body type. That's huge.
Oh, absolutely critical. A particular cut or style of garment might look fantastic on one person, but just not suit another. This is a critical factor in fashion personalization that simply doesn't apply to recommending movies or music.
Good point.
Plus, environmental factors play a significant role too. The weather, the changing seasons, even your geographic location.
Yeah, recommending parkas in Panama is not going to work.
Exactly. It dictates what clothing is relevant. Plus, you have regional style differences, cultural norms. It adds another layer to this contextual challenge that media streamers don't typically need to navigate.
So while Netflix is mainly considering like when and where you're watching, maybe what device,
Yeah, consumption circumstances.
fashion platforms have to juggle all these different aspects of context. It's a much, much more involved equation for them.
And building on that complexity, another significant hurdle for fashion personalization lies in how we even describe and categorize clothing
You
itself.
mean the labels and tags?
Precisely. You have basic attributes like brand, color, and fabric, sure, but then you get into much more nuanced details, silhouette, pattern, neckline, various decorative elements.
Ruffles, embroidery, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The challenge here is that the fashion industry doesn't always have consistent terminology, and many of these attributes can be quite subjective. What one person calls boho, another might see differently.
And I guess if the tagging isn't accurate, it can have a real knock-on effect.
Oh, absolutely. If a product isn't labeled correctly with all those specific details, it won't show up in relevant searches.
Which obviously hurts sales.
Right. Imagine searching for a flowy, floral maxi dress and not finding what you're looking for because it was only tagged as, like, a long dress. Very frustrating for the shopper, bad for the retailer.
Yeah, okay. Compare that to media.
Well, media categorization is generally much more standardized. Netflix, for example, uses established genres, comedy, drama, sci-fi,
Right, pretty clear buckets.
plus production information like director and actors, and other objective attributes. This metadata largely comes from the production companies themselves, which makes the labeling process less complex and, crucially, more consistent.
And the categories don't change quite as fast.
Exactly. While fashion trends can change rapidly, media genres evolve more gradually. It leads to more stable classification systems overall.
You know, it's also fascinating just how much fashion is tied to our identity and how we express ourselves.
Definitely.
Style is personal, as one of our sources emphasizes. It's a reflection of who you are, who you want to be, what you want to communicate non-verbally.
Hmm. And our style is often influenced by what we see and admire, maybe characters in our favorite shows or influencers whose fashion we follow. There's inspiration everywhere.
That's a great point. There's a strong social and aspirational element to fashion. We might choose clothes based on how we aspire to be seen, not just on our inherent preferences from the past.
Whereas media preferences, while personal, are usually more about the content itself. You might identify with characters in a show, sure, but the connection to your core identity isn't usually as direct as it is with the clothes you choose to wear every single day.
And tastes can change faster too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Your taste in movies might remain relatively stable over years, but your fashion sense can evolve much more quickly with changing trends, seasons, even life stages.
Okay, so given all these complexities, the emotion, the context, the labeling, the identity piece, it's probably not surprising that current fashion recommendation algorithms still face some pretty significant limitations.
Right, they're getting better, but it's tough. One big challenge is trying to account for that emotional aspect of buying clothes. It's not always a logical, need-based decision.
Like needing a new coat because it's cold.
Exactly. Sometimes it's an impulse buy because something just makes you feel good, and algorithms really struggle to factor in those feelings and impulses effectively.
And then there's the aspirational side you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a tricky one too. Algorithms are often trained on your past purchases and browsing history, but what if you're trying to evolve your style or experiment with something completely new?
How does it know?
It's difficult for a system to recommend clothes that align with who you want to be rather than just who you were based on past data clicks and buys.
Technically, it's also just hard, isn't it? Even with advancements in AI visual search, like what ASOS is using,
Which is cool tech, by the way.
for sure. But it's still much harder to algorithmically compare the visual attributes of clothing. Things like texture, how a fabric drapes, the subtle nuances of a cut.
Yeah, capturing feel and fit visually is complex.
Compared to, say, comparing the content keywords of a movie description.
True. And data availability is another hurdle. People generally buy clothes less frequently than they consume media, right? You watch Netflix maybe daily or weekly, but buy a new outfit less often.
So there's less historical purchase data to work with. Data sparsity, they call it.
Exactly. And because fashion trends and inventory can change so quickly, new seasons, new styles constantly arriving, the past data can become less relevant faster than in media. What you bought last summer might not say much about what you want this summer.
Okay, so how are fashion retailers trying to overcome these limitations and deliver more effective personalized style recommendations? What's working?
Well, one common approach is collaborative filtering. You've probably experienced this.
Is that the people like you also bought thing?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's saying people who like the same things you did also tended to like this. We saw ASOS uses this to compare your behavior with that of similar users and suggest relevant items.
Okay, that makes sense. Finds patterns in groups.
Right. And then you have companies like the Yes, who are taking a really interesting, more customer-centric approach.
What do you mean by customer centric?
Well, their founder, Julie Bornstein, talks about creating an industry-changing experience by really focusing on that personal connection and putting the customer first. It sounds like it's about going beyond just the algorithms.
Trying to understand the emotional and aspirational sides of fashion, too.
That seems to be the goal, yeah. More holistic.
But even with these innovative strategies, scaling truly personalized style recommendations must remain a huge challenge.
Oh, enormous. You need to develop these really rich user models that take into account not just stated style preferences, but also body type fit preferences.
All that context we talked about.
Exactly. And doing that effectively for millions of users is incredibly complex. The subjective nature of fashion taste means there will likely always be inherent limitations to what algorithms can achieve entirely on their own.
So maybe human curation is still needed.
I think so. That's likely why we'll continue to see a role for human stylists, curation, and more hybrid approaches combining tech with human touch.
It's fascinating to see the different ways the industry is tackling this. We've mentioned Hansos leveraging AI for recommendations and visual search,
Yeah.
and the Yes focusing on that really intuitive, personalized shopping feed.
hmm
Then you have platforms like LTK, that's LTK.
Formerly like Ketokino.ae.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which directly connects influencers with shoppers, making their outfits instantly shoppable. That's another angle on discovery and purchase.
Right. And there are also apps like Cladwell that help you build a capsule wardrobe based on your individual style preferences, often gathered through style quizzes and understanding what you already own.
Sort of a less is more approach, but personalized.
Kind of, yeah. And even larger e-commerce platforms like Pomelo Fashion have used services like Amazon Personalized to enhance their recommendation engines. It really highlights the ongoing innovation everyone's trying to crack this.
And it's not just about innovation within fashion or media in isolation, is it? There's potential for cross-pollination of ideas.
I think absolutely.
Yeah.
The sophisticated ways that media platforms analyze user behavior, scroll speed, complex patterns could certainly inform how fashion retailers understand browsing patterns and intent better.
And maybe the other way around.
Definitely. Advancements in visual similarity algorithms in fashion, recognizing subtle style details, texture, drape, could potentially be applied to recommending visual content in media, maybe even beyond just posters. Who knows?
Interesting.
Ultimately, the future of fashion personalization likely lies in these hybrid approaches, intelligently combining the power of algorithms with human insight and curation.
Like the Yes model seems to hint at.
Exactly. As Julie Bornstein suggested, empowering human experts with sophisticated AI tools might be a more effective path than trying to fully automate the nuanced process of styling someone.
And we're also seeing exciting potential in areas like virtual fitting rooms, right? Using AR or AI.
Yeah, that could be a game changer, helping bridge that gap between the online and in-person shopping experiences, tackling the fit problem directly.
And it's worth briefly touching on the distinction sometimes made between taste, maybe your inherent preferences, and style, how you choose to express that taste.
A subtle but important difference. Personalization efforts are really trying to cater to both, understanding your core preferences and how you enact them.
So to kind of bring it all together, it's clear that personalizing fashion online is a much more intricate puzzle than personalizing media, much harder to solve.
Definitely. You've got the significant emotional component driving purchases, the critical role of context like occasion and body type,
Which media doesn't have to worry about.
right, and the inherent challenges in accurately labeling and categorizing the vast and ever-evolving world of clothing styles and attributes.
And while technology continues to advance at a really rapid pace, the deeply personal and contextual nature of clothing means that truly understanding and predicting individual style at scale remains a really significant challenge for fashion e-commerce.
Yeah, it's not solved yet, not by a long shot.
It really seems that while algorithms are getting smarter all the time, the human element and getting direct input from you, the shopper, are still incredibly important ingredients for effective fashion personalization, maybe essential.
I think so. Which raises a fascinating question for our listeners to consider. How does your own emotional connection to the clothes you buy influence the recommendations you find genuinely useful online?
Good question.
Do you think the algorithms are truly capturing your unique personal style, or are they mostly just reflecting your past buying habits, your clicks?
Yeah, think about that balance between the convenience of personalized recommendations showing you more of what you know.
And the joy, maybe, of discovering new styles organically, something totally unexpected? Where does that fit in?
That's definitely food for thought. If you found this deep dive into the technology behind your online shopping experience interesting, please share it with anyone you think would also be curious.
Hmm.
And make sure to subscribe to the Fashion Algorithm so you don't miss our next exploration into the ever-evolving intersection of fashion and technology.
Yeah, please do.
This episode of the Fashion Algorithm was sponsored by Cloutfit.ai. That's CLOUTFIT.ai.
Clavefit.ai.
They connect influencer outfits directly to your product inventory, making their content instantly shoppable, which drives more sales and higher order value for brands and retailers.
Sounds pretty useful.
Yeah, definitely check them out. Visit cloutfit.ai, again, CLOUTFIT.ai, to learn more.